NewsRadio 1400 KTEM, online at KTEMnews.com. I'm Jamie Garrett. Good evening and welcome to the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. And as we get into playoff football time here, it feels like football weather outside.
It does. No doubt.
I picked up my coat, and my coat has been in my office on the back of my door all year. All year. And everybody that would come into my office and close the door for a meeting or something would say the same thing. Why is your coat up here? Well, this is why, because I knew that today would be the day that I needed it. And you get back into those pockets after 9 months of not using a coat, it's like Christmas. You're like, ooh, what's that? I found sunglasses and a $10 bill. Mike Spradlin, head coach of Temple Wildcats, joining me. Defensive coordinator Scott Stewart will join us here in a little bit, Coach. But certainly, goal number one for the Temple Wildcats has been accomplished. District championship, undefeated in the district. A botched snap away from potentially going undefeated into the playoffs. But at this point in time, whether it was one loss or three coming into the district, the only thing that matters is that district championship and that you're playing this Friday night. I would have to think the team's at full strength, so you're feeling pretty confident heading into this playoff run.
Jamie, it was a big night for us Friday night, and in a lot of ways. I mean, momentum is always a huge thing going into the playoffs, even though we knew we were in. To have an opportunity to go in with some momentum was a big deal, and I was just proud of our kids. I mean, there was a lot on the line. I told you last week, and I still mean it. I thought Elgin was playing really good football. I thought they were playing as good as anybody we'd faced at this time and in our district. And so, it was one of those things where, we went out in the first quarter and then all of a sudden we scored 21 points in about 3 minutes and never looked back. And I just thought to go out decisively. I thought we were extremely physical the other night. I thought we really won that toughness battle up front, both sides of the football, offensively and defensively. And just a big win for us, big win for the program, Jamie. I mean, it's some things that happened the other night, quite frankly, that hadn't happened in our kids' lifetimes. And I put my philosophy hat on sometimes, and in the great places like Temple, Texas, that you love because of the tradition that's here and all that. But relevancy for our kids is now, and for them to have an opportunity. I mean, I toss out a few factoids that a couple of people have given me, quite frankly. I mean, it's the first time that there's been back-to-back district championships here since 92, 93. That's something that's now happened in our kids' lifetimes and something that hadn't happened before in their lifetime. And then really the first 8-win regular season. 8-win season since '96. So when you look at some things like that, I think it's kind of a neat deal, and we'll certainly have some fun with those things at the banquet and all that kind of stuff. Right now, our total focus is about district championship.
Yeah, 8 wins in 9 games, by the way, 9 games with the one cancellation. We'll talk to Coach Stewart about some success that Elgin was able to have a little bit in the first half, running the ball with that, I call it kind of a vintage, old school Green Bay Packer type sweep that they were running. But with you, I want to talk about the offense and you talk the talk with Cole Martin saying that he can go out there and lead the team, but until me, Gene, fans, everybody sees it, we see that wasn't just coach speak. I mean, Cole Martin is a quarterback.
He is a quarterback, Jamie, and that's an investment, quite frankly, in next season for Cole that you can't trade for. I mean, what you've got now is a guy that'll go into the Round Rock game next fall, with a district championship start under his belt. And that's just, that's the age-old deal. That's an investment that you get a great return for. It was a smart thing to do. I told you Chad was available, and he was. But the smart thing was to get Chad more rest, and that's been proven to be a good thing because he really looks good right now, and really looks to be 100%. So, it was just, I was very, very proud of Cole, extremely proud of Jeff and Marcus and our guys up front. And then, of course, I thought our receivers did a great job as well. Tyler Hendon, honestly, to me, changed the course of the game with just one great catch. And we talk about that all the time. What are you going to do to inspire your teammates? And what are you going to do to be a game changer? And I thought Tyler's play the other night on the diving catch was a game changer.
Yeah, hashtag SC Top 10 on that one for sure, because that was a fantastic catch. And not just that, but then Ty went out and helped finish the drive. I think he had 3 receptions on that drive, and those were the 3 receptions he had for the game, and he came out in a burst like that, and suddenly Temple's on the board, and then boom, 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 like dominoes, all within about 3 minutes of game time. Temple had scored 21 points to kind of stretch its legs a little bit and put Elgin behind the 8 ball, because they're a team that doesn't like to necessarily pass the ball. We saw a couple of times they were able to connect. You mentioned it last week, Kyle and Colin, the Snell brothers. Yep. They connected, and really that was their lone target was Snell, because you effectively shut down the rest of the passing game and just did a fantastic job defensively. But on the offensive side of the ball, was Chad President ever more than 6 inches away from your side? I mean, he had his helmet on the entire game. He wanted, you could tell, you could just kind of see him shaking, wanting to get out there and play. And that's certainly something that it was great to get him the rest, but you know that he's a gamer, he's a player, and what he has left in store for us throughout this playoffs, I'm looking forward to seeing the most, because I don't think we've seen a complete game from Chad President this season, beginning to end, both phases. We've come awfully close. We've had games where he's just blown us away running, games where he's blown us away passing. But really, if he's able to bring those two together, he's just the type of leader that 20 years from now, looking back, you could be saying, yeah, that was Chad President's team. He took them.
Jamie, I love Chad. I do, and I love everything about him. I love his passion and his leadership, and I think a lot of what you saw Friday night is a great testimony to Chad's leadership. I mean, you're exactly right. He was in the ball game the whole way. He never once made the week or the game about himself. And he'll continue to do that. That's what's so awesome. I mean, he's had, a great week this week, and he's excited about getting to play in his first playoff game, by the way, since he's been here. I take that back. He played against Longview as a freshman, actually, was on the field. So, I mean, the words can't tell you what a great kid he is and what a great leader he is, and I thought he did a great job Friday night of staying engaged in what was going on. And certainly in the running game, Martin was not a big part of that, and that's certainly something by design. But when you've got two other guys, both over 100 yards, one over 200 and one closing in on 150. Look at Marcus Hatcher; he had 7 carries, 3 of them for touchdowns. Yeah. and we're not talking about a yard out here, and that's the misconception, and that's how I had him labeled early on, because he'd come in on those short yardage plays, and you think to yourself, okay, well, he's a short yardage back, but he can bust the big one, just maybe not quite as well as Jeff, because Jeff is a one of a kind young man, but Marcus has certainly got probably the best spin move I've seen doing high school football. When he gets even just a hair of room, he can make you look silly. Well, Marcus has got some speed too, Jamie, and I think he's shown that through the season. Big, hard-running guy with some moves, and he's Jeff. There are no other Jeff Carrs. I mean, Jeff Carr's he's a proverbial can't catch him in a phone booth guy, out juke his shadow, all those things, all those adjectives that you can use. There are two different types of running back. Jeff's special, and so is Marcus, and then I look at our receiving core, and the night that Davion Curtis had, Tyler Hannon had, we've kind of come together. Our old line playing really well, and we're going to have to Friday night, Jamie. I mean, we've caught another opponent, in the first round. It's a good opponent, but we'll say the same things we said last year. When people say, "Well, you got a tough draw," my answer has been, "No, they did," and so that's the way we look at it. We think we're the tough draw. So we've practiced well. We're going to go get after it. We've got a big ball game Friday night, and got to go try to do something now. We talked about. I was talking about all the things that we've done. Well, those things are over, and we really have put that to bed. I mean, those are things you celebrate when the season's over. Right now, our focus is on doing something that hadn't been done since 2003, and that's winning a playoff game here. And A&M Consolidated, a team that some people had picked to win the state championship at the beginning of the year. They struggled at the beginning of the year, but just like we saw with Elgin last week, once they hit the district, they came in swinging, and they played in a pretty tough district down there this year. They did. And they are a former 5A team, just like you are. They're not one of these small town teams that suddenly sees themselves playing Temple. I mean, this is a team that in what is now 6A football, they were a perennial playoff team there. So they are a tough team, certainly. Offensively, we'll talk to Coach Stewart about what A&M Consolidated does. My least favorite opponent, because there are 8 syllables in A&M Consolidated, and I cannot say consolidated in the middle of a sentence to save my life. I don't know what it is. It's just my thing. But so console, I'll call them. What do they do defensively that you're going to see when you line up on Friday night? Well, Jamie, you're right. I mean, historically, they've been a really good football team. I mean, last year we actually hosted the regional finals here, the fourth round, if you will. They were in the fourth round of the playoffs against Lake Travis right out here at Wildcat Stadium in a very, very close football game. So, they went 4 rounds deep a year ago. They were picked by Dave Campbell's Texas football to win the state championship this year. Well, there's a reason why, because they've got some cats and some kids that can play. They've found their stride now in district play and played really, really well. They played some really tough teams early on, some ranked teams that they're still ranked, Elkins and some teams like that. And all 3 of their first 3 games are all playing in the playoffs, and most of them going in as the number 1 seed. So, they are a very good opponent defensively. They've got speed. They've got their secondaries. They've got athletes. They're fast. They're big up front, and they're sound. So we're going to have to do our thing. We have to do it well. We're going to have to execute, and that's one thing I feel good about. When I look back at where we've been offensively this year, we've done a pretty good job of finding our stride at some point in the game, and we need to come out fast. They're going to be a team that is going to move the football, Jamie. They're good enough offensively to move the ball, and you have to be realistic when you look at that. You can't just, are we going out to shut them out? Well, absolutely. You don't ever go in a game and say, well, we'll just give up 21. You don't do that, but we know we're going to have to play good in all phases.
Yeah, we certainly won't tell Coach Stewart that. No. I don't think he believes in that philosophy.
I don't want him to beat me up.
Yeah. We'll take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk to Coach Stewart, and then we'll come back and wrap things up as we head towards 6:30 UMHB Coaches Show as they continue their undefeated season. John Wallin will host that Coaches Show coming up at 6:30 tonight. We'll come back, talk to Coach Stewart, Scott Stewart, defensive coordinator for the Wildcats, and we'll do that right after this on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM, online at KTEMnews.com, and on the free-to-download Radio Pup app on your tablet or smartphone. That's something important to know. Heading into the playoffs this Friday night on the road in San Marcos. If you can't make it down there, that Radio Pup app on your tablet or smartphone, anybody in the world can download that and listen to it on the Radio Pup app. And, of course, always good in the stands as well. It's about a 2-minute delay on it, but, if something happened and you wanted to figure out what had happened 2 minutes later, Gene and I will tell you, to the best of our ability anyway. So I'm Jamie Garrett back here with my head coach Mike Spradlin, and joined for this segment by defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. And Coach Stewart, I'm glad you're here because I had a lot of defensive questions and a lot of talk about the defense that I wanted to get through today, and you're the perfect guy to talk to about that. You probably don't like the sound of that, but it's actually I this defense, and I mentioned it to you, Coach, last week, Coach Spradlin, and I've mentioned it to a couple other people. I don't think defensively that this Wildcats defense has played as well as it can over the course of an entire game. But when you think about that and you look at the rise in the number of turnovers created the last couple of weeks by the defense, it seems to be coming together at just the right time, doesn't it?
It does, Jamie. We play hard, and we've talked about since I've got here about this is big boy football, and playing hard, playing fast is not always enough. You got to play well, and you got to be smart, and you got to know your assignments. You got to fit your assignments, and so what we're starting to do, I feel like, is we're starting to gel a little bit, and they're starting to get more comfortable with that aspect of it. They've always flown around. I looked at one of the team doctors the other day and said, I'm going to tell you one thing about these kids from Temple. They will fly around, and they will try to knock the fire out of you, but we're starting to fit it up. And what happens is when you combine those two together, you're going to attack the football more. And we talk about that. We're attacking the football. We attack the reception points on passes. We attack the tip of the ball on tackles. So when you combine those two things and you get more consistent, which has been kind of the $64 million word, if you will, of this year, when you get more consistent, that ball starts coming out a little bit more. You get more opportunities at that kind of stuff.
And certainly when you look at the players that you've got on the defensive side of the ball, at the beginning of the season, youth was a question. A lot of guys in new positions. Matter of fact, I think all 11 guys in new positions this year on the defensive side of the ball. But you've seen young guys like Ashton Logan and Escobedo step up. I believe, no, is it Taquan Graham that's just a sophomore?
Yes.
Yeah. You've seen the young guys step up, but you've also seen guys like Clint Cole. He's just become a ball hawk over the last month and a half of the season here.
Right. There's no words to describe what Clint Cole has meant to this defense and this football team. That kid, if he is 4 inches taller, I'd be beating D1 recruiters off with a stick. But he probably, knock on wood, he is the heart and soul of this thing. He's a great leader in the locker room as well. He kind of gets guys going the right way. He does all the right things all the time. And because of that, kids like Taquan Graham, kids like Ashton Logan, they have somebody to look to. I mean, Taquan especially, with the twins. I mean, they've kind of taken Taquan under their wing. They have great leaders to look at. And so it's when you do that, you kind of take the pressure off of them, and they don't have to come be somebody they're not. They just need to understand the role and fit the role, and especially with Ashton. I mean, I think we were trying to get him to do too much too early, and so we kind of simplified his role and just let the guys around him, help cover him up, and he's coming into his own now.
Well, when we look back at the game on Friday night, as we talk with defensive coordinator Scott Stewart here on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show, heading into the week one of the playoffs against A&M Consolidated this Friday night in San Marcos. When you look back to Friday night, offensively, Elgin was able to come out, and I called it the old Green Bay Packers sweep, because that's what it looked like. It looked like Vince Lombardi was on the sideline and said, everybody with a 50, 60, 70 on their uniform, run to the right, block out in front, and then they just ran that quarterback out behind them. They had some success on the first drive. They had some success early, but you were able to shut off that spigot later in the game, and it seemed like backside pursuit was the real key to that. What, from the coach's perspective, what changed when you were able to shut that off for them?
Well, what changes is I can't show them the speed and the violence with which that's going to happen during the practice week. I mean, God love our scout teams, but they give as good a look as they can. But if you watch film, they move the ball on everyone they played, doing that little package there. And the fact of the matter is, no one does it anymore. So that's an anomaly in itself. Is that you go against this stuff. You got 3 days to prepare for it. All we talked about was fits. And it did. It took us a couple of series. And they, Elgin's one of those teams that they jump into that kind of stuff, the old school, almost single wingish tackle over stuff. They jump in that, and the next series they jump in empty. And then they'll jump in trips open, and then, oh, by the way, they'll come back to that. So, it took us a couple series. The fit, we kind of got real aggressive with it. It's kind of, you match intensities, if you will. If they're going to play knock you off the football, we're going to kind of dare them to throw the ball out of that, and we did. And once we kind of got the fits down in the backside pursuit, I mean, I was trying to get the guys to pull the trigger on the backside, and they're like, Coach, I ain't going to be able to get there. Once we fit it on the backside, they had to cut it back, and they could get there. So it was an acclimation issue, I think. We look great all week fitting it, but until you see that speed, that fast, I mean, it's just it's the same thing every week. But with the spread offenses, you kind of get some similarities. But when one pops up like that, you only got 3 days to prepare, and it's 3 days for one team that, in an entire season.
That you won't see again until this time next year.
I mean, if you don't play Elgin, you're not going to see it maybe ever.
And that's certainly why they do that. And that's why schools like the Service Academy still run the option, because nobody sees it anymore. And you've got athletes out there that may not be elites. And so that levels the playing field. And that's, I would say as tough to prepare for, I would think, as if you had a, number one recruit in the nation back there in the backfield. It's just as tough because you guys seem to defensively find the focal point of the offense of the other team and take that away. And that is so important, especially as you get into the playoffs here. They say you win, championships. Defense wins championships. Well, it's the offense that's put the butt in the seats this year and got a lot of attention, obviously for good reason with the talent they've got in the backfield. But it looks like as the Temple defense begins creating turnovers and begins to put it all together, this is a team now suddenly that's a two-headed monster, because you've got that defensive side of things, and I would imagine with both of your history in the playoffs running through, you don't get very far in the playoffs without at least a pretty decent defense, I would imagine.
No question. And again, I have no problem taking second chair to this Temple offense, because they are amazing. They do a great job. I mean, they fly around it. It's funny because it actually helps our kids. Tempo, and knock on wood, tempo's never been an issue. I mean, these guys go so fast and they're so physical, and so, I don't mind being the little brother, if you will, but our kids do take a lot of pride in our defense, and they want to do well. We've kind of sorted it out. Again, I would rather see people load the box like Elgin and try to smash it down our face, because I like tough kids, and I think we match that pretty well. Consol getting to the next week, they're going to spread it out, and we're going to have to play well. There's going to be a premium again put on tackling and technique. But these kids, they do understand the importance of the third season. They do understand that, that we have to go out and perform. And it's almost a luxury. Again, our kids kind of go with a little more swag because they know if they screw up, it's not the ball game.
Yeah.
I mean, the offense is going to come out there. They are going to have their back. They see it week after week after week. I mean, even sometimes we don't play well. Our kids still, all we talk about is all we got to do is go stop them a couple times. I mean, we got to get out there and go make a play, but I mean, it ain't the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I've been places where it wasn't like that. And so it's, our kids have a comfort in the fact that they know that this offense has got our back.
Talking with defensive coordinator Scott Stewart, Friday night, the big win against Elgin to take home the district championship. And when you look at the defensive side of the ball and what Elgin was or was not able to do, they certainly looked in the first half like they were going to run that quarterback Snell 100 times in the game. They backed off of it in the second half, changed things up a little bit. He didn't get nearly as many carries in the second half. And there was one drive, one of their touchdown drives, where Snell, the quarterback, had a 37-yarder and 27-yarder consecutively. I think it was 27, then 37. But and they went in and scored a touchdown. But again, this defense not giving up 50-plus yarders. And then this defense, as aggressive as you say that they play and as aggressive as we see them play on Friday nights, that's pretty amazing considering you do have a little bit of youth in the defensive secondary. So at any moment in time, it could be a big bust, but it's not. And that is certainly a luxury for the Temple offense even, because you've got a defense out there that's not going to give up one play and then you're back out on the field offensively again.
Well, we're going to make them earn it. And we talk all the time in practice about practice attitude and about if just make them snap the ball again. I mean, I'm aggressive by nature. I'm going to put us in some strenuous situations, but just make them snap the ball again. Don't let them cross that line. I don't care if it's the 3/8 of an inch line. I mean, and so, again, we focus on rallying to the football. We focus on getting our butt there and being a bad attitude. And again, you got kids that can run. I mean, anytime 15's back there running around, I mean, the guy was on a 4x1 sprint relay that ran sub 40. So it does help to have some team speed. But again, I've seen fast kids not play very fast. And so it's a want to thing. And again, these kids, they want to be good. They want to, they believe in that. They're buying what we're selling right now as far as just make them snap the ball again. I could care less about a 30-yard gain as long as they were at least on the 31.
Jamie, I'm excited too. I mean, our defensive kids, we knew, quite frankly, that we needed to get better defensively. And I've told people that listen to me, I mean, I get accused even as a head coach of, having an offensive mentality. And quite frankly, I don't. I mean, when I say that, I've got a football team mentality and that's where it's at. And so I've just always believed you control the things that you can control, and offensive kids have to control what they can control. Defensive kids have to control what they can control. What Scott's done, what Coach Stewart's done since he got here, is develop that mentality defensively, that aggression, that we, if you will, that our kids seem to have, in a confidence level that our kids have right now. I mean, it's by far the best defensive product we put on the field, and in our 4 years. And I would tell people, I'd say, well, what possible good does it do me to not want to be good defensively as a head coach? I mean, obviously, if we're good defensively, and that's what's happened this year, it hasn't been about just getting stops. It's about getting the ball back. I was real pleased the other night with the way we fed off each other. I mean, we created some turnovers, and then we were able offensively to turn those turnovers into touchdowns. And to me, that's just as much on the defense as it is on the offense. And I don't know, Jamie, it's just been a different feeling around our field house this year. Our defensive football team's playing with a confidence and an aggression that it's going to take if we really believe we're going to be what we are in the playoffs.
Yeah, certainly. And look back to your first couple of years here, and that was the knock on Temple is, they can score 60 points a game, but they may give up 62. And that was a lot of people's impressions coming into this year, and that certainly changed. First week of the year, I remember I talked to you and said, wow, you got a 42-35 win or 42-28, whatever it was in the first game of the year. It seems like so long ago now, but and you weren't happy with that, and I was kind of surprised. But seeing now as the defense has developed, and this is a legit defense. This isn't just a complimentary defense that can do just enough to win. It's not arena football defense where you think to yourself, we make one or two stops, the offense will do it, because the offense at times has been up and down this year, and when the offense hasn't been able to carry the water, the defense has been there to do it. Do you think, would you classify, and I know coaches don't like stats, labels, anything like that, but when you look at the defensive side of the ball, You got guys like Clint Cole with the speed and now the ball hawking ability. You've got two great linebackers in there. And we'll talk about Quentin here in a second, his return last week. But when you look at the defensive side of the ball, do you see a bunch of scrappy kids that are playing above their individual talent levels, or do you see a potentially elite defense with elite athletes out there at all three levels of the defense?
I don't know that I would say elite, but I'm going to tell you what, they're a little more than scrappy. I mean, these kids, they have worked their tail off. You know, when I say elite, let me clarify that. There's not a 6'5", 290-pound D lineman. I mean, that someone would say, oh my gosh, and so they play bigger than they are. But I do believe in the scrappiness. There's no doubt that these kids are probably some of the toughest kids I've ever been around. They're not going to overwhelm you with their size, but they are strong. I mean, and they do – I'm going to tell you what, they do understand technique. I mean, we talk all the time about technique rules the world, and we're giving you this technique. And that was a struggle at first a little bit because, you know, walking in, not to compare what was done and what is done, but, you know, there was some gap shooting and there was some stuff like that. And once these kids have kind of started to believe in that their technique will take them there, I don't think there's elite athletes at all three levels necessarily, but there is elite football players at all three levels.
Well, you get the impression that this defense is not going to be the type of defense to give up 28, 35 points and a half and give up a big lead like we saw last year. And that's a big deal heading into the playoffs because the offense, not only are the offenses you're facing getting better, but the defenses you're facing are getting better. And it may be a situation where you may have to win a 14-10 ball game. And you get the feeling this year that the defense can pull that off. But let's talk specifics as we talk to defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. A&M consolidated this Friday night. Formerly 5A, would have been 6A this year, but they stayed back just like Temple. So this isn't a small town school that, big city, so to speak, Temple can come in and run over. This is a team that just as easily could be a 6A type team. They beat Copper's Cove on the road to open up last season, so they've got some ability. They're a strong team. What are you looking at? What are they going to bring offensively?
They're fast. They're the spread team. They're going to try to get it to athletes in space. They're very good. You know, they're right at 500 yards a game on offense, and so it's going to be the kind of the same old hat for us. I mean, what can't happen is we can't freak out if they get a first down or two here and they're going to choke them on tongue, but they may score. I mean, which drives me insane. But we got to go play hard and we got to go make them earn it. That's our big mantra against these spread teams is don't give up the cheap ones. Don't let them turn a 6-yard route into a 70-yard play. I mean, just make them earn every step they take, and we'll take what we get. I mean, change up the looks. We'll move around them a little bit. We'll try to condense some space just because that's what you try to do against spread teams. But there's going to be a premium put on tackling and technique, just like there always is against these kind of teams. And if we do it well, we'll be fine. And we got to go out there. I've always tried to match likeness, and what I mean by that, against Elgin, they're going to hit you in the face, so we're going to load the box and we're going to hit back. Against these guys, they're going to try to outrun us, so we got to play fast. And so there's been a simplification of techniques. Speaking of technique, is kind of the word of the day. But we're going to one read, one reaction, one speed, and that's on, and we just got to go. We got to go play fast.
Who is the home team this Friday night?
They are.
They are? Okay. That's okay. That's
it's really irrelevant.
Well, yeah. For I was thinking from the announcer's point of view, they have the most difficult to read uniform numbers from the press box. You can't see that gray on maroon, but that was just a question for me. But Friday nights, San Marcos Bobcat Stadium, big time stadium, big time game, and we appreciate your time, Coach.
Jamie, I appreciate it, man.
All right, and hopefully we'll be talking for a couple weeks more to come as the Temple Wildcats head into the playoffs. This Friday night we'll have that game here on KTEM and on K1017. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, wrap things up, get ready for the UMHB Coaches Show. That's on the way next with Pete Fredenberg and John Wallin on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Jamie Garrett here with head coach Mike Spradlin. Back to wrap things up as we get ready to send things over to the UMHB Coaches Show. And, Coach, as we head into the first round of the playoffs, certainly an exciting time here in Temple and around the state. Everybody's psyched about the playoffs. But for Temple, it's been a long time. Even last year, as well as Temple was playing at the end of the season and share of the district championship, and the defense played really well at the end of the last season. Heading into the playoffs, you weren't at full strength. you had a quarterback out there in Chase Truelove that had nearly a whole season under his belt at quarterback, but this is a different Wildcats team than it was last year. One of the reasons we talked to Coach Stewart is that defense, but the other reason is that you're at full strength offensively, especially with Chad President. That's great news.
Well, we are, Jamie, and we're healthy. And playoff time in Texas high school football is awesome. I mean, there's 64 teams right now. There'll be 32 at the end of the weekend. And the goal now is to be one of those 32. We do. I mean, there is a hump to get over, Jamie. I'll go back and, our Cooper experience in the third year there, we managed to get 3 rounds, and then it was amazing. We stayed on that track. Next thing you know, you've played, 10 football games in 3 years in the playoffs. So, it's one of those things where once we get there, and that first one's the hardest one to win. It really is. I mean, when you look at something that our kids haven't done that they certainly aspire to do, there's still a certain amount of getting over that hump, so to speak, to get into that second round of the playoffs. And everybody always says the first one's the hardest one. I'm proud of our kids, Jamie. I think they've got a great focus on this week. I think they expect to win. We expect to win. But we also know that that'll be hard fought, and we're going to face a really good football team. But I'll say it again, so are they. So we're just going to line up, show up. It's 100-yard field. We've talked about that this week. Doesn't matter where we play; it's how we play.
And it's going to be an awfully big environment there. A beautiful stadium, Bobcat Stadium, down in San Marcos. Friday night, Wildcats taking on A&M Consolidated, a team much like Temple that stayed down in 5A football this year with the redistricting, and certainly got a lot of 6A talent on that side of the ball for sure. But so does Temple. That's the amazing thing is we talk about Temple going into the playoffs last year, not at full strength, and a lot of people may not have given Temple a second thought last year with the backup quarterback and everything else that was going on around it. But you came within a play or two of beating the eventual, were they state champions? You talk about A&M went here last year, but Temple was just a couple plays away from being there themselves last year.
We were, Jamie, and that's the thing about playoff football. I mean, there's 6 games. I mean, we're 6 weeks from the end of the season right now, and in that 6th game, there's only going to be 2 of them left. So you're going to start with 64, and there'll be 62 eliminated in 5 weeks. The thing you have to get into, and the mentality that you have to get into the playoffs, I think, Jamie, is that you have to understand that state championship game could be any Friday night or Saturday afternoon. I mean, you never know when you're playing that game, and it can be in the first round, it can be in the third round, or it may be in the 6th. You never know. Last year for Cedar Hill, we'd like to think that they had to play one in the first round. Obviously we were at that point, and you see what happens after that happens. So we've kind of talked to our kids about that, about staying. Our big 2 things this week have been, we want to have focus and have fun. And the focus obviously being first. I've been real proud of our kids for that.
And you talk about 64 teams left. There's thousands more, literally, that aren't playing this Friday night.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot of fun to be out there playing football instead of going through that off-season workout program. That's never as much fun.
Amen.
So that's coming up Friday night, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:30 kickoff. Don't forget that Radio Pup app. You can download it on your tablet or smartphone. It's absolutely free. You can listen to the game through that app and wherever you may be. And, of course, online at KTEMnews.com. Hopefully, we'll continue these conversations for the next 6 weeks or so as Temple is in the playoffs Friday night. Thank you so much for your time, Coach. Thanks again
Amen.
to defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. We'll take a break, come back, and get you to the UMHB Coaches Show with John Wallin and Pete Fredenberg. That's on the way next on News Radio 1400 KTEM.